good morning, and welcome to this special celebration of Black History Month. I am Romona Fullman, the Director of the Division of Human Relations and the Office of the Commission for Women. It is a pleasure to be here today with you to celebrate the many, many contributions and achievements of African Americans in our nation and state, past and present. Dr. Carter G. Woodson launched Negro History Week in 1926. The week chosen was the second week in February between the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. In an article published by the Black World Today titled Why Black History Month, it was written that Woodson believed that the study of Black history could serve a dual purpose. It could be used to counter white racial chauvinism, which was used to rationalize the oppression of Black people in America, the distortions and deletions in American historical records as it pertains to matters of race, Woodson believed was detrimental to the health of the nation, whose inherent promise is life, liberty, and justice for all. Perhaps most importantly, Woodson knew that in a society where Black intelligence and moral worth is incessantly demeaned and devalued, studying Black history would serve as a psychological defense shield for Black students against assaults of white supremacy. So he embarked on a quest to establish a national celebration of Black history. In 1926, Negro History Week was born. Our president, the first African-American president in the history of the United States, issued a proclamation yesterday to celebrate this month. Our governor will do the same. President Obama's proclamation reads in part as follows. During this month, we pay tribute to the contributions of past generations and reaffirm our commitment to keeping the American dream alive for the next generation in honor of those women and men who paved the way for us, and with great expectations for those who will follow, let us continue the righteous cause of making America what it should be, a nation that is more just and more equal for all its people. At this time, I'd like to introduce James Collins, who is the Deputy Secretary of State. Mr. Collins also serves as chair of the Governor's Equal Employment Opportunity Council.
Thank you, Ramona. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much to everyone for coming out. It's a very important day. It's an important event, and we're so glad that you all could take the time to join us here today. We've acknowledged the Governor and the Secretary of State. I would also like to acknowledge the Secretary of Education, Lillian Lowry. Where did Lillian go? I saw her come in. Good morning. Also like to just acknowledge other dignitaries that are with us. Representative Blakey, I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. Representative Kenton. Good to see you, sir. Representative Peterman. Representative Wilson. And former Dover Councilman Reuben Salters is with us today. And I hope I haven't missed any other dignitaries that are here. If not, please, if I have, please forgive me, but we certainly welcome you all. We also would like to acknowledge our special visitors, the students of Central Middle School in Dover. Thank you so much for being here with us. Don't they look good today? Also, we want to acknowledge Calvin Christopher, who is the chairman of the Delaware Human Relations Commission. Thank you for being here with us, sir. We also have one of the commissioners from the Delaware Human Relations Commission, Wallace Dixon, is with us. So thank you for being here with us. Our guest speaker, who I'm very anxious to hear from today, Mr. Orlando Camp. Thank you for being here with us today. And he also had his beautiful wife with him as well today. She's looking at me like, why'd you do that? Thank you. Also, I'm in trouble already, so let me stick to the script. All right, we also have the Provost and VP for Academic Affairs of Delaware State University, Dr. Thompson. Is he, where is he? Dr. Thompson? And also, I want to just give a special thanks to Steve Marz and the staff here at the Delaware Public Archives for hosting this event here today, a very special event in this beautiful atrium. Also, we want to thank you for your hard work in putting together the displays. You probably noticed some of them as you came in and as you go up the ramp, and we'll talk about those a little bit more. But thanks, Steve, and to you and your staff for pulling together everything today. And certainly we want to just thank all of the members of the public for joining us. The images that you're going to see displayed around the archives today are reminders of some things that some people may want to try to forget. A difficult and terrible time in our history. But it's important that we remember our history. And so we've got around the archives a number of historical documents, pictures, artifacts, even playing on the DVD right there. You'll see real images from our history. If you go up the ramp to your left, you will see a photo and a document display, and there's more behind you in the small cases on the back. And as I mentioned, there's also documents as you come in. So as I said, it's important to remember our history. You heard Romona say it. You'll probably hear all of the speakers say it today. And when I say history and when I say our history, I mean American history, which encompasses Black history, and the two cannot be separated. So we must have events like today. We must remember. We must know our history, if for no other reason than to truly appreciate those who fought uphill battles and made sacrifices, sometimes to the point of death, for civil rights, for equality, and the God-given liberties that we enjoy today. So we are encouraged by the significant progress that has occurred, but we must also face the reality that there is still much work to do in striving for mutual respect and equal opportunity, not only for Blacks, but for other minorities and women. We must continue to build upon the accomplishments and draw strength and inspiration from those heroes throughout history that we commemorate this Black History Month. So it is my great honor to introduce a man who truly believes in providing opportunities for all people in every aspect of life. His commitment to diversity is more than reflected in his words, but also in his actions, his decisions, and his administration. I once read that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And if you spent any time listening to our leader, you will know he is a compassionate leader and a strong voice for justice and equality who celebrates Delaware in all its diversity. I am proud to introduce our governor, Jack Markell.
Thank you. Thank you. The first note is that Secretary Bullock no longer ever has to introduce me because I'm taking James Collins with me wherever I go. First of all, it is truly a pleasure to be here. And I am very much looking forward to listening to Orlando Camp and his message. And I have to say that he introduced me to his wife, Stephanie, a few moments ago, and the first words out of his mouth were, "She is my heart and soul." And I said, I assume she feels the same way about you. But, and for the students to have the opportunity to be here and to realize, sometimes we think about history as things that happened like long ago from people who are no longer around. And I think as you listen to Orlando Camp and what he has done in his life, and you look at him, he's really not that old a guy. But we're really just really fortunate that you are here. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the legislators who are all here. I do want to thank Secretary Bullock and Secretary Lowry. She and I were together this morning, really on the issue of making sure we are fighting for opportunity for every kid. To the folks on the Human Relations Commission, Calvin, thank you. And to the folks at the archives, and Steve, just raise your hand for a second, because James did introduce Steve, but I asked Steve to acknowledge himself. So if you have questions earlier about some of the resources that are available here in the archives, you ought to ask him, because there are quite a things. There are lots of books and other exhibits, and I encourage you to take advantage of that. I didn't actually realize until I was preparing for today exactly why it is that February has been chosen to be Black History Month. And Romona mentioned it, and I don't want to go into the detail, but do any of the students remember, do any of you know why February has been chosen? And it has to do with the fact that there are 2 birthdays in February of people who were really very much connected to Black history and freedom. Yes? Abraham Lincoln, and who was the other one? Excellent. Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, which and when I realized that, it immediately, the first thing that came to my mind when I think of Frederick Douglass, and I don't know how many of the adults in the room have ever read his speech, "What to a Slave is the 4th of July." Any of you know that speech? It is truly, if you don't know it, you have to read it. And I would urge you, when you get home today, just go on Google and to read the speech. It's called "What to a Slave is the 4th of July." He was asked in 1852, I think he was in Buffalo or Rochester, somewhere in upstate New York. He was asked to deliver a speech about what the 4th of July is all about. And it's an amazing speech, because it's, as you can tell from the title, if you're a slave, what is the 4th of July supposed to mean to you? And it's a speech about the hypocrisy in this country at that time. And it's very, very powerful. And when you think about the progress that we have made, we have in fact made great progress. But there's a danger. And the danger is to think, particularly with having Barack Obama as president, there's a danger in thinking that we've made all the progress we could ever hope to make. And it's just not true. I mean, I think, it does say a lot of good things about this country, that we elected a Black president. But there is so much still to be done, and I think, and James said it very well, in terms of fighting for opportunity for African Americans, for other minorities, for people who may be of lower income, no matter their race. And we have, and I hope this is something that the students really can take away, we have some incredible shoulders that we stand on. We really are here because of giants who have gone before us. And that's really why, this is why it's so important to study history. I mean, my thing when it comes to history, there are 2 things. One, why do you students think it's important we study history? Anybody have any? Yes? Wow, yes. It's better than That's certainly better than I could have put it, but I think one thing for sure is you have a much better chance of not repeating the mistakes of the past if you know what those mistakes are, and you know what kinds of things that those mistakes led to. But the second is for us to understand and to appreciate and to celebrate and to build upon those that have gone before. And there's some just amazing, and there's some great leaders right here in Delaware in the civil rights movement. Some of you students may know of Lewis Redding. Of course. His brother, Saunders Redding. We have sitting in the front row, Reuben Salters. There are many. There are many. And I really think that part of our responsibility as adults is to make sure that we provide the resources for you all to understand what has happened before. And your responsibility as students is to actually take advantage of those resources, to study it, so that you can make better decisions than people who have gone before. And that's why these events mean a lot to me. You know, I'm about to sign a proclamation, and you know, this proclamation comes on this sort of fancy paper. You know, it looks really official, and that's a good thing. But you know where these proclamations, what happens to these proclamations afterwards? They tend, probably, a lot of them, they go on a shelf somewhere. And someday when somebody's cleaning out an office, they're going to find this proclamation. And if that's what happens with the proclamation, the question is, was it really worth it for all of us to be here? And it's nice because there are some reporters here and some cameras, and everybody's going to remember, and people are going to say, wasn't that a nice thing that they celebrated, that the governor signed a proclamation for Black History Month. But if that's all it is, then it's not enough. And so I'm about to sign this proclamation. Our Lieutenant Governor, Matt Dehn, has already signed it, and it declares February of 2012, Black History Month. But I'm really here because I want to make a deal with all of you that I'm going to sign this thing. And I'm going to go around the state, and we're going to talk about the students of Central Middle and the good things that you guys are doing. But if you could really think about what this means, you got a whole month. Sometimes I sign these proclamations where it names a month, like, you know, whatever History Month, and I sign it on the 29th or the 30th or the 31st of that month. So this one I'm signing on the 2nd of the month. And honestly, I really, in a sense, it's unfortunate that we have to have 1 month for Black History Month, because every single month, every single day, we ought to be thinking about the lessons that we have learned from those who have gone before, and we ought to be acting on them. So I'm going to sign this, but it's symbolic. It really gets lived out in the way that each of you live your lives. Think about when what I am saying here, frankly, is less important than what you were about to hear from Orlando Camp. And I hope you'll really listen carefully. And I hope you'll share it. And I hope you'll think about the progress that we've made, but I also hope that you'll think about the progress we still have to make, and that you will take it on as your personal responsibility to make sure we continue to make that progress. So with that, February is now officially Black History Month in Delaware, but it only means something when all of us act on it. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Governor. Certainly, I'd like to say welcome to everyone being here. Again, my name is Calvin Christopher, and I chair the Human Relations Commission. And I certainly want to accept this proclamation on behalf of all the commissioners, on behalf of the staff, on behalf of all the residents in the state of Delaware that we serve, on behalf of all the teachers who this month will be teaching Black History Month, and all the students who will be the recipients of this rich history. Now, there's another celebration that's going on as well. For we are here, and I stand before you, that we are celebrating 50 years of the Human Relations Commission. It was 50 years ago when this commission was created to really address the amiable relationships of the different cultures and races throughout the state, and later on to enforce the fair housing laws and equal accommodation laws. Here we are 50 years later with still that need. Yes, we have come a long, long way, but we still have a long way to go. But we're here to really celebrate Black History Month. Actually, I'm going to change that around a little bit. We're here to celebrate American history and the significant contributions that African Americans have made toward that history. During this month, many of you are going to hear a lot about firsts. The first African American who have made some significant contributions. But as I look around, I see a lot of firsts right over here. As I look at our students here, I see dreams not yet fulfilled, books not yet written, songs not yet sung, records not yet broken, businesses not yet created. Diseases, not yet cured. Glass ceilings, not yet broken. And other records, not yet broken. That's what we are looking for from our young people on this Black History Month. Black History Month is not something just to be celebrated in February, as your governor has alluded to. Something that needs to be incorporated in all curriculums throughout the state, just as any other history lesson. Now, later you're going to hear from Mr. Orlando Camp, and I'm excited to hear from Mr. Camp as well. And Mr. Camp is not one who went where there was already a path. Mr. Camp went where there was no path, and he created a trail for us and a trail for you all to follow. So I implore you all, let's go beyond just celebrating Black History Month. Let's embrace Black History Month. And for our young people, I want you to begin to create Black history as you move forward. So Governor, thank you for being here, and thank you all.
It makes a difference having young people in the room. You do represent our future, and we're so glad that you're here. At this time, I am pleased to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Orlando J. Camp. His new book, The Milford 11, looks at the Brown v. Board of Education ruling and the attempt at school integration that took place in Milford, Delaware in 1954. The book follows the experiences of 11 Black children to be integrated into the Milford School District. Mr. Camp, right here, was one of them, one of the Milford 11. The book also looks at community leaders. We have legislators here. It looks at, and other members of the community, Mr. Salters, how the leaders in the community felt, both for and against the Supreme Court ruling supporting school integration. Mr. Camp co-authored the book with Ed Key, our Delaware Secretary of Agriculture, who had previously written a significant article on Brown v. Board of Education as it relates to Milford. Unfortunately, Secretary Key could not be here this morning, but he certainly has contributed to the knowledge that we have around the Milford 11 experience with Mr. Camp. Mr. Camp is not only an author, he is also a successful businessman. He is married with 3 daughters, 1 son, and a wife. We heard about it earlier. And he lives in Wilmington. We are very, very honored to have Mr. Camp with us today to speak about his experiences. Mr. Camp.
I don't know if I can live up to that beautiful compliments and beautiful comments about my life and my success and so forth. And I want to first of all thank the governor and thank the guests. And I'd also like to thank Tom Summers and his outstanding staff, because this museum, by the way, has been a major contribution to my book. I spent a lot of time down at the Delaware Archives working on my book, getting information about history, and you young students should look at from time to time, come over and visit the archives, because it has a tremendous amount of information about our past. I also would like to thank Ramona for that nice introduction. I'm very proud to stand here today, because believe it or not, 50 years ago, I could not have stood at this podium. I would not be allowed to be in this building. That's the way it was in 1954. We've come a long way as a race, as an American race. And that's the way I like to consider myself, as part of the American race. We come by faith. We come by, many times we had to look for the church as the solace for our ways, for our salvation. and for our success. And yes, from time to time, we had to play the game of life. Sometimes, even when the rules were not even fair, we still had to play. I'm very pleased to see that the accomplishments that we've been able to achieve triumph over diversity. And my story is a personal one. I go back over 50 years ago with Brown versus Board of Education. Now, many years ago, when May 17th, 1954, when they affirmed Brown versus Board of Education, they said that we would have a chance to go and get an equal opportunity and get an equal education from the white schools. Well, I graduated from Benjamin Banneker High School in Milford, Delaware in 1954. Actually, it was June 16th, 1954, long time ago. And the reason why we were excited about getting an opportunity at the all-white school was not because we didn't get a quality education from the Benjamin Banneker School, but we knew if we were going to be successful and have an opportunity to have a career, we would have to go to the all-white school because the opportunities were there. That doesn't mean we didn't get a quality education from the Benjamin Banneker School. But after Brown versus Board of Education, the nation media came to a small town in Delaware called Milford. We were, to a minor degree, if you will, kind of celebrities because the media would interview me time and time again, basing on the fact that they would like to know how I felt about this integration. Lewis L. Redding was our lawyer. He told us in August of 1954 that we would be attending the all-white school for the first time. And we were excited about that because, again, we knew that was going to be an opportunity to be successful in life. I was one of the 11 students that attended the all-white school for 28 days. Now, I joke from time to time that I tell my kids I was in the top 10 of my class because there's only 11 students, so how bad could it be? We didn't know how bad things were until we experienced racism under the law. Because then the Supreme Court had ruled that we had an equal opportunity to get an education. But the community of Delaware and Milford said, no, we're not ready for you yet. The Supreme Court ruled that we'd had a chance, and we were excited. My mother gave me $150 to go to Strawbridge and Clothier. That store is no longer, now I think it's called Macy's or some other store, to go shopping to get my new clothes for this new career, this new challenge. And I was excited, not because I knew what we were going to get into, not that we knew that this is what we were going to face in terms of a challenge, but the fact that this would be an opportunity for me to get a quality education. So the first day of school, everything was calm, everything was peaceful, and we felt it's going to be okay. It's not going to be bad. This is a good thing. And then by the third day, the crowds began to build outside of the school. And this is the old Milford High School on Lakeview Avenue. As the crowd began to build, the names began to, we began to be called certain names. And I won't go through all those. You guys have heard them before. And once we began to see those names, we realized that this is not going to be an easy situation for us. But we were excited because we felt we had a chance to get a quality education. And I looked at that experience in 1954 as a challenge that you young students can take a look at what we went through so that you guys could be here today. And believe me, it took us 50 years in some communities to get here. We've come a long way since 1954. Milford has made many changes. In my life, I've been successful to some minor degree, and all the accolades that you've given me today has kind of confirmed that I'm really pretty good. I wrote a book, chronologically taking all the events in Milford and putting them in this book. Yeah, it's a little bit commercial this afternoon on Black History Month, but you're welcome to purchase my book for $19.95. But the idea of all this is not to sell books. I wrote the book as a labor of love. I wanted to tell the story, not in a negative way, but to tell the story as the events happened chronologically, and also what happened to me and the 11 students that happened in 1954 and what they went through. Because it took a challenge, it took a long way, it took a long time for me to be able to get up and talk about this. Because when this happened, I did not talk about this incident that happened in 1954 for over 40-some years. I buried it in the subconscious of my mind, and I moved on to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I left Milford the day I graduated from high school. And we went to Jason High School, and we also went to William Henry High School. And those were the two schools, those were the options that we had to get an education in 1954. In Milford, some of the tragedies that we went through were the cross burnings, the boycotts. In fact, we even had to go to school in a police car, and it had to be a state police car because the local police did not want to, participate in the activities in Milford because they had to live in the community and they did not want to be accused of favoring the 11 black students. So it was a trying time, and the reason why this story never reached national news for the most part, because this is the same time that Martin Luther King came along a few years later. The Arkansas 9 had the boycotts with the soldiers outside and so forth. And those 28 days that we went to the white school, the Milford High School, were buried pretty much in the archives here in Dover. And as I got older, I guess I developed what you can call a bucket list of what I want to do, what I want to say before that time comes for me to move on. So I decided to write a book, tell the story as I saw it, but I did it not because it's going to be a moneymaker or for the profit. I wanted to make sure that our young folks that are here today get an opportunity to see what we went through. That's, as the Governor Markell has said, we stood on the shoulders of others that have come along and have made the struggle. Today, we're a long way from the crisis of 1954. Milford has seen many changes. Yes, I've had some successes in my life. I was chosen as the Soldier of the Year in 1963. I was chosen twice as National Sales Manager for Scott Paper Company. I worked as National Sales Manager for Bird's Eye Food. And yes, believe it or not, after 50 years, I had a career at the state of Delaware as the marketing manager for the Department of Agriculture. It took 50 years for me to come back to the state of Delaware. And I close by saying that my philosophy on life has always been the same. And I say to you young people today, never let one incident define who you are. Never let one disappointment in life define who you are. This is Black History Month, but it is also an opportunity for us to be able to look back at the many accomplishments that many black folks have made to this country. As a proud American, I would have always defined myself as someone who would never, ever let a particular incident define who I was going to be. Racism is still here. And as Governor Markell has said and others have said, yes, we've come a long way. Someday, racism will only be a footnote in our history. And I hope it'll happen in February. Thank you.
Mr. Camp, thank you so much for the courage of sharing your story. One of the things that we've learned by the sharing is the fact that discrimination, racism hurts. It took him 50 years to be able to retell the story. It does hurt. And I'm so proud to be associated with the State Human Relations Commission, who continues to fight against discrimination. And so I'm just going to ask that members of the Human Relations Commission raise your hand or stand so that people know the formal agency responsible for continuing the fight of discrimination. Wallace, Nancy, Bob Watson, and the staff. There are investigators here that come out into your communities to help you work to have a better community. And members of the staff, if you could raise your hand. Thank you. One other thing I'd like to say, I'm struck by the fact that Mr. Camp shared that African American students could not even get in the school. And yet today, we have a Secretary of Education who's an African American female. Lillian, will you mind standing? Change is possible. It requires a lot of work. It requires leadership from brave people like Governor Markell. And it's necessary, so I encourage you to continue to make the progress. This concludes our formal program. However, if you just look at the pictures, as I was sitting, I was looking at the days gone by and what it means, and you can really appreciate where you are now when you look back. And so I encourage you to look at the pictures, look at the displays. Up the ramp, you can see more information. Again, I'd like to thank Steve for all the work that he has done and that this organization does. History is right here for all of us, young and old, to explore. Take advantage of this resource and come anytime, right, Steve? Absolutely. And please, while you're here, take advantage of the knowledge that Steve has about the facility to share. Oops.
That's me.
Oh.
Can we get Steve to talk about what's going to happen on Saturday?
Yep, Steve is going to share some remarks about something that's going to happen on Saturday. But in closing, I know that they are pioneers, they are trailblazers in this audience. And without calling your names, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, each and every one. And to the young people, I'm counting on you, really, because history is being made now, you or them. So do your part. So my colleague, Steve, I'll ask you to come up.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's a wonderful experience to be able to share what we have in the archives. We have over 4 million documents that relate to the history of Delaware and over 800,000 photographs that we have here as well. So we certainly appreciate you coming. We're also available. You don't have to always come in person. We have many of our materials online. For the students, I know you enjoy that very, very much. I see the smiles on your faces, and I understand that. So that you can come here and you can get that rich piece of information. We have a major program going on here on Saturday. I know Tom will be here to host that. Tom, if you could just come up for a minute and just give us the times and what's going on Saturday. Tom Summers is a member of my management team, and he has done remarkable work with his staff as far as outreach. In fact, it was Tom's staff that helped put this exhibit together today and did all of the installation. And specifically, I'd like to mention Jessica Carmichael and Lori Hatch in their endeavors in doing this. So if you want to know something about these pictures as well, certainly those are two individuals that you can speak to today. Raise your hand, Jessica and Lori. Thank you very much. Mr. Summers.
On Saturday at 10:30, we're going to be having a program about the Tuskegee Airmen here in the research room. It'll be about a little under an hour long, and it is actually retired Brigadier General Talbert who will be speaking on the Tuskegee Airmen. So we invite you all to come out and join us for that program on Saturday, 10:30. It's free.